This. I want to ask you about the role of Larry Silverstein and his
Hmm.
magical 100-year lease that he signed on the WTC properties 3 months prior to the event and had them double
Hmm.
insured against terrorist acts. But let me ask you this first. In the news now, of course, very timely, we have
Hmm.
former Mayor Rudy Giuliani joining the Trump
Hmm.
team. And many of us hold out hope that Trump is going to put an end to child sex trafficking. He certainly made the issue of human trafficking something that he's talked about publicly, as has Steve Scalise, who then was shot by a would-be assassin. We have hopes that this president will give us the reprieve needed to take our country back. But I don't want to be too naive. What I've said, Christopher, is that this guy is
Hmm.
a whole lot better than the Rothschild puppet and witch, Hillary
Hmm.
Clinton, who literally would have fast-tracked all of these things, including taking our guns, destroying the Second
Hmm.
Amendment, opening the borders. It would have been game over. So I do believe we've been given a reprieve under Trump. But let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Rudy Giuliani, who I believe on 9/11 was just a very low-level foot soldier.
Hmm.
Do you think he has any culpability at all in this cover-up, or was he just scared to death and he knew he couldn't speak out, or they just whack him?
No, no. Like I said, you have to understand that 9/11 was a very sophisticated military operation that had been planned and prepared over decades. In my little book, The War on Terror, The Plot to Rule the Middle East, I show that 9/11 didn't happen out of a clear blue sky on its own. 9/11 was actually done in order to create or to kickstart the War on Terror. The War on Terror is an older construct. The War on Terror was rolled out onto the propaganda stage in 1979 in Israel at the Netanyahu Institute with Menachem Begin and Bibi Netanyahu, leading the show. And what they basically were calling for, and Netanyahu wrote several books about the subject afterwards in the 80s, they were calling for the United States to lead the Western democracies militarily into the Middle East to basically vanquish the terrorist threat to Israel and to destroy those nations that harbored these terrorist groups. And this is where the whole 7 countries in 5 year memo comes from. The idea that the United States after 9/11 should go in and take out Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, et cetera, ending with Iran. And all those countries have been done. Lebanon is still kind of like unaffected yet, but it's been terribly fractionalized over a period of years, and Iran is the last country in the game. This is the agenda. This is what 9/11 was done to create. This is what we got. I don't know about peak oil. I don't know how much what these theories have led to, but the Israeli Yinon plan, and this is to conquer the Middle East and to dominate the region by breaking up the Arab countries into little ethnic statelets, like what was done to Yugoslavia, Iraq, Sudan, Libya, Syria. They're trying to break up Syria right now. This is the game plan. This is what's been going on for 16 years. This is what the American taxpayers' money has been spent on and borrowed on our credit, $600 billion a year for this. And Donald Trump was right when he said the other day, we've spent $7 trillion with a T, $7 trillion in 17 years. And what did we get? Nothing. We got worse than nothing. We lost a lot of American people, a lot of young lives, and we've killed over 1 million people. So it's been carnage for nothing.
I couldn't agree more. And, we have that clip of Hillary Clinton gloating about the fact that
We came, we saw, he died.
she's largely responsible for having killed Gaddafi. And, these people have so much blood on their hands. All right, well, I'm glad I asked you that about Rudy Giuliani because it ties into Silverstein Properties. It ties into World Trade Center 7, which, as you know, was World Trade Center 7 housed the New York mayor's command and control bunker, a reinforced bunker for the mayor to go to in times of a city emergency. And, of course, we have this footage of him running through the street, followed by reporters.
All that we know right now is that 2 airplanes struck the 2 large towers of the World Trade Center. We spoke to the White House. There also apparently was an attack on the Pentagon. We asked that the airspace around the city of New York be sealed by military aircraft. We've been informed that it has been, and we've seen military aircraft up in the air. So we're hopeful that right now things are secure.
He and everybody in World Trade Center 7 were cleared out hours and hours and hours before what happened to World Trade Center 7 at 5:25 in the afternoon. at which time it fell at free fall speed. And of course, we have the BBC, I believe it was the BBC, reporting about the collapse of that building, the Solomon building, 20 minutes before it actually collapsed. So they cleared everybody out. Giuliani evidently didn't know why. And something went wrong as it relates to WTC-7, because I can't believe they wanted that building to fall at free fall speed for the world to see at 5:25 in the afternoon. What do you make of World Trade Center 7? It's really a smoking gun.
Well, yeah, well, you know, you're right about the OEM, the Office of Emergency Management for New York City, on the 23rd floor. But I'm pretty sure that they had relocated the day before. So on September 11th, they were down at Pier 23, I think it was.
Yeah.
Because they were preparing.
FEMA was there. That's right.
Yeah, they were preparing for one of these FEMA drills where Dick Cheney would have been involved, and this is this mass disaster, but not a military thing. This is not the military planes flying in from Russia or anything like that. These drills, there were many of those drills going on, 3 or 4 of those, Vigilant Guardian, Northern Guardian, what have you. This was a New York City drill of some sort of nerve gas or biochemical weapon, and then how they would handle such a situation. And so because of that upcoming scenario plan, drill exercise, they had relocated the OEM down to the 23rd Pier 23, which meant that the OEM, the 23rd floor of building number 7, was occupied by somebody else that morning. And it seems to me that the people that pulled the plug, that pulled the buildings, that oversaw the demolition of the towers, did so from those buildings. And you remember, I think it was Barry Jennings, I think his name is, a black man,
right,
who talked about coming out of Building 7 in the morning, and he said there had been explosions in there. There were bodies in the hallways and in the lobby. So, and this is early on.
Well, me and Mr. Hesh, the Corporation Counsel, were on the 23rd floor. I told him we got to get out of here. We started walking down the stairs. We made it to the 8th floor. Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor. And I turned to Hesh. I said, "This is it. We're dead. We're not going to make it out of here."
So, something and some of these guys actually got trapped in Building 7 for a little while and had to be rescued by the fire department. But something very strange was going on in Building 7, and they had to destroy Building 7, I think, because they had to destroy the evidence.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right. I just don't think they wanted that building to come down in the late afternoon. I think it was probably meant to come down on around the time that the Twin Towers came down. It makes you wonder about that that other plane that went down in a field in
Shanksville, Lambertsville, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing is that that's what I mean, is that there's so many things, there's so many loose ends. All you have to do, first of all, you have to understand we've been deceived about what happened on 9/11 by our government and our media for 16 and a half years now. But you and I are both on the same page on this. But millions of Americans still believe the official story. Many Americans, old, young, rich, poor, they believe the official government story about 9/11 to this day. They have not come to the understanding that we've been lied to about 9/11. So in this day and age now, where we are right now, I try to make it very simple to explain to people how you can talk to people and let them understand that we're being lied to, and give them the most simple, basic facts that show that we've been lied to about 9/11, and we were lied to for one reason. We were lied to protect the guilty, obviously, and also to take this nation into a war that we are still in. I mean, this war is taking the food off of our table, literally and figuratively. The American people are suffering greatly, economically, spiritually, morally, because of the war that we've been deceived into fighting. So I say 9/11 truth is the peace movement, because when you understand 9/11 truth, you'll understand that the war is a complete fraud and needs to stop.
Amen. 100% true. And I don't want to beat this thing to death, but as we round out the conversation, I do want to focus on, World Trade Center 7 and the entire World Trade Center complex and Larry Silverstein. And I just want to remind people that, first of all, what you just said about the OEM in World Trade Center 7 kind of blows my mind. I'd never thought of that fact, that Giuliani may not have been there at all, and that somebody else was running the operation out of that building. By the way, World
right.
Trade Center 7 also housed an office of the CIA, I believe one of the bigger offices of the SEC. I've heard some of the records for, I believe, WorldCom and Enron, and those investigations were stored in World Trade Center 7. So again,
right.
you pull the plug on World Trade Center 7 and a lot of those problems go away. All right, I want to ask you about Larry Silverstein. He signed a 100-year lease 3 months prior and then had the prescience to get the buildings insured for, I think, double indemnity against, or at least he tried to recover that, against an act of terrorism. Again, just a crazy coincidence, right?
Yeah, and the clause that was about the terrorist attacks was used for in his insurance contract was used for the first time ever. And very briefly, I want to tell you, Larry Silverstein is a kind of a gangster type character. He had a strip club called Runway 69 in I think it's in the Bronx by the airport, and he did not have the wherewithal. He did not have the money to buy the World Trade Center, to lease the World Trade Center, even to put down the down payment. It was beyond him. So the money that put down the down payment, which was a very small fraction of the amount, came from a company GMAC, General Motors financial company that went bankrupt in 2008. Another Zionist guy owned that and fronted the money up, gave Larry Silverstein the money. Now, how Larry Silverstein got the building, very briefly, is that there's Governor Pataki was going to privatize some properties in the state. He set up a privatization board. The privatization board for New York State was headed by a guy named Ronald Lauder, the son of Estee Lauder, the cosmetic queen. He's a very big Israeli first guy. He has a Lauder School of Government and Strategy in Israel at the university, which is I call Mossad University in Herzliya. It's called the Interdisciplinary Center in Herzliya. And there at the IDC, the head general who's in charge of strategy and policy is a Rothschild. His name is Danny Rothschild. And these two guys work together in Israel, Ronald Lauder and Danny Rothschild. Well, Ronald Lauder was in charge of privatizing the properties of New York. He chose to privatize the World Trade Center. Then it went to the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to negotiate. They had a couple of people who wanted to buy it. They made it very difficult for the one company, Vornado, who was the expected buyer, and it suddenly went to Larry Silverstein. Now, the person who ran the negotiations for the Port Authority was a man named Louis Eisenberg. He and Larry Silverstein are both on the board of directors of an organization called the United Jewish Appeal, Jewish Federation of New York City. So they have this charitable. This is the largest organization for funding the state of Israel in the world, and this is where they get a lot of money from New York Jews and Zionists to support Israel. These two men were on the board of directors of that organization. So that was the back channel that made sure that Larry Silverstein got the contract, got the lease. And he got the lease, I think it was July 26th, about 5 weeks before 9/11 happened. And not only did he insure all the profits and whatnot, he also insured the rents. And the first thing that he did when he took over the property, he increased the rents 40%. 40%. So by then insuring his future rents, he also increased that 40%. I mean, this is complete gangsterism, and it's a shame that our country and our people have not found a way to bring these people to justice after 16 years. It really does not say a lot for our system of justice.